Hey guys, what's up? This is Brett. Welcome to this week's episode of Friday on the Turntable. Today I'm going to be talking about a much underappreciated yet just excellent band, The Sound. Post-punk. Their debut album came out in 1980 called Jeopardy. I'm actually going to focus on their first three albums today. I want to show you five other bands that whose albums came out in 1980. These are all bands either from England or Ireland. Several of them are our debut albums, but it just gives you a context of what was going on in the fertile musical grounds of 1980. The second and final Joy Division album, Closer, who I think have a lot in common with The Sound. Bauhaus's debut album, In the Flat Field, 1980. Their debut, U2's debut album, Boy. The Psychedelic Furs, their debut album from 1980. Of course, this is the one with Sister Europe and Imitation of Christ, which are two of my favorite Psychedelic Furs songs. This is actually the US cover. And finally, the third album from Susie and the Banshees, Kaleidoscope. So The Sound formed out of a band called The Outsiders, which featured the Sound's singer Adrian Borland. So when that more of a punk-sounding band dissolved, he formed The Sound in 1979, and shortly after their first album, Jeopardy, came out. It was preceded by an EP. Like I said, post-punk, the sound of The Sound, I know I'm going to keep saying that, it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but a common ground with Joy Division. There's a really dominant, present bass lines, and Adrian Borland's guitar playing really reminds me in some regards of Bernard Sumner's playing from Joy Division and then later New Order. Just these great little melodies in between the vocal parts. And the cool thing about The Sound is they also have this keyboard texture that comes in within the songs that really gives it a whole other edge. The songs sometimes can be really upbeat and bouncy, and then they can take a really dark turn. Adrian Borland's singing is, there's moments when he goes higher that reminds me of some moments of Ian Astbury from the Colts vocals, but overall not like his vocals, if that makes sense. There's a real sincerity in the vocal parts. I think the lyrics, there's a lot of wisdom in the lyrics, and I think there's a lot of him defining himself personally and his existence in the world. And then later when we talk about what happened with him, it'll kind of apply to that. But they ended in 1988 after 5 albums, and there's been some posthumous releases of the band's history. He went on after that to release a couple solo albums. And then, as I was about to mention, in 1999, throughout his life, he suffered a mental illness, and in 1999, he took his own life. But their first album, the song Missiles or Missiles, it's probably my favorite track on this one. And I think the statement that it makes is something that just even in the times that we live in now, 34 years later, it still holds true, the message. And I just want to quote the lyric, "Who the hell makes these missiles when they know what they can do?" Just intense. Heartland is another favorite of mine, and I can't escape myself. It's excellent, and like I said, you hear a contemporary sound of Joy Division, but also it makes me think of bands like the Chameleons, and even on another level, like maybe the first 2 albums by Psychedelic Furs musically. There's just some common ground. So I highly recommend, if you're fans of Joy Division or any of those other bands, even any of the bands that I showed in the first 5, because the sound seems to just go by unnoticed, and a lot of people really aren't familiar. And the cool thing for you guys that are vinyl collectors is the first 3 albums have actually been reissued on vinyl. This one is actually a reissue, and it's on the 1972 label here, and I think these sound actually pretty good. And this one has an insert, and it shows the lineup here. And it had a female keyboard player, By Marshall, and I think she left after the second album. But other than that, it's a pretty blank. It says on the bottom, "We will wait for the night, we will wait." So that is their debut right there, 1980s Jeopardy. So I want to take you into 1981 for their second album, From the Lion's Mouth. Now this copy that I have here is an original press on the Korova label, and this one has a gatefold. The artwork on this is just spectacular. It has all the lyrics in there, the band photo, and you can see the whole picture of that that cover there, which is spectacular. It's hard to choose a favorite album of theirs, but this one definitely runs the gamut of emotion. If I had to choose three favorite songs from this one, Silent Air is excellent. Skeletons, Sense of Purpose. Highly recommend you guys seeking these out. And if I remember, I will mention some of these down in the description box, or I'll have a link to my blog with some video clips. Because if you are unfamiliar with this band, I can't recommend enough. I've turned several people onto them already just by, because I've talked about them before in certain videos of mine, but I've never done a full-blown feature like I am tonight. But everyone that I have played the band for them, they instantly fell in love. There's just something really, I think, sincere about the vocal delivery and just the sound, just their overall, the way the layers are all put together. It's a really, it's a style of music that I really gravitate towards and when you hear it on vinyl, the instruments, there's not a lot of overdubbing and layers. It's very, it's like the records from that time period, the post-punk records, the way they were produced. There's a lot of headroom between the instruments. You hear the bass clearly. You hear the, one track, maybe two tracks of guitars, the vocals, the drums. Everything's really clear, really spacious, and it sounds killer, especially the bass lines on all of these recordings. It's just recorded so nice and upfront. From the Lion's Mouth, their second album, 1981. Now, their third album, which is called All Fall Down, this is another reissue on that 1972 label, which is available, and these are available actually for not too bad. I think around the $15 to $17 range is I think what I've seen them for. This album was kind of panned when it came out, and for being such a drastic departure, but it's so bizarre because when you hear these three albums consecutively, and I've listened to them consecutive many times, and even today before filming this video, I listened to all three of these in a row, and it's really not. It sounds like a natural progression of the band, so I don't know why there was such an uproar over this record being such a departure for them and a failure and a critical failure. Because when you listen to it, it's actually a great release. The opening track, All Fall Down, with the backing goes, we all fall down. It's just really stellar. So that's one of my favorite tracks in this one. Party of the Mind, Monument, which has this cool acoustic guitar textures in there, just a really beautiful melody. And I'm going to even throw out a fourth song, Calling the New Tune. So this is All Fall Down. I don't know what the critics were saying, but this is a fantastic release. So if you end up reading some reviews of this one and you see that it's just not up to par, that's ridiculous. These three albums, I'll tell you, if you go to the record store tomorrow and if you find either of these three, you won't be doing a disservice to yourself, because any of these ones are great places to start. So let me just kind of recap on these albums. Oh, and then I also have in the back here, this was their fourth album called Thunder Up. And then they had a fifth one, which I don't have to show you on vinyl. But for today's purpose, I'm just talking about these first three. Highly recommend it. Like I said, if you're fans of any of those bands I showed in the beginning, and primarily, they're much akin to the sound of Joy Division. And even, I guess, even the fate of the lead singer in that kind of more morbid common ground there, which is, a sad story. From the Lion's Mouth, the second one from 1981, and All Fall Down from 1982. And that's what I love about that time period too, when bands put out album, 1980 first album, 1981 second album, 1982 third album, consecutive releases like that, which is, really not very common in today's market. So anyways, guys, that is the sound. I'm going to have a link below where I'm going to send you over to my blog. Check out some clips. Highly recommend next time you're at the record store, you see the sound, pick it up. You guys will not regret it. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. All you guys that are always watching and leaving comments, really appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.